Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sitdown. Ooh, is there a movie out right now that it seems like everybody is absolutely loving, and I hope more people go and see. I want to see a buku box office on this bad boy at the end of the day, and after only about an $80 million opening domestically and about a $200 million opening worldwide, off to a little bit of a slower start, but I think this thing could have legs because it is big, it is action-packed, it is doing things that you've never seen people do before, and it is everything that a summer action blockbuster should encapsulate. What are we talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair? Take a seat. We are getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. And I'm going to start with the title on this one, because this is actually one, I was at a party last night and we were talking about this. I don't think this movie needed a Part 1 on it, right? Like, I think you could have just called this Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, and then the sequel to this could have just been Mission Impossible, whatever you want to call that movie. Because this is a movie that feels complete. You know, it doesn't feel like Across the Spider-Verse, where it's like the movie stops dead in the middle of it, and you're like, wait, what? You're stopping there? This has a full completed story, that just sets up the next piece that'll be in the next movie. I just think, like, you didn't need the Part 1 on there. That being said, I find this script to be extremely strong because it functions so much like a standalone movie that just should have a sequel that comes from it. It does leave us in a spot where it's not, I wouldn't say a cliffhanger, but like you are in the process of like, oh man, we got to this stage of the mission, now we got to go do this stage of the mission. And that's something that I really like about the movie, and it's something that I think audiences will be able to connect to, in the sense that, it's not like you're getting invested to be left hanging for however long it's going to take for the next movie to come out, because you have a satisfying conclusion here. And the rest of the script, which of course comes to us from director Chris McQuarrie, as well as Bruce Geller and Eric Jendrinson, this is a pretty solid Mission Impossible script, I think. It's introducing the idea of artificial intelligence and things that artificial intelligence can be doing that I've been saying as we see more and more AI stuff pop up in the world. There are reasons why you want to stay away from this. And I think it's a very timely action spy thriller movie to be diving into, like, the dangers and the absolutely terrifying nature of what AI can do. And I like how they kind of handle it, how they utilize that concept to set up what the overall story is, which, to be fair, still has a bit of a question mark on it. We don't know everything. Like, we've got a piece of the puzzle, but we still, and our main characters, still need to find out what the other part of that puzzle is. But I think what that concept can set up, both from a character perspective to an action perspective, I think works really well. And the other thing that I like too about this one is this does feel kind of more like a standalone traditional Mission Impossible movie. Back in the day when before Chris McQuarrie got them, they really were kind of like James Bond movies in the sense that, like, you'd have a standalone, specifically female characters, you'd only see them for one movie and then you'd discard them. And McQuarrie came in and built more of a team, right? You already had Luther, Ving Rhames was going to be in all of these movies. Simon Pegg had joined that as well. But you still kind of had the female character problem with the rotation. And Rebecca Ferguson coming in under Chris McQuarrie. Elsa is one of my favorite Mission Impossible characters. And in that sense, because there's history with these characters, this that makes it part of a franchise that, like, it's good to have that background, but you don't have to know every single thing that has happened to these characters in the past in order to watch this movie and enjoy it. I definitely think there are certain elements, specifically on the emotional side, that won't hit as strong if you haven't seen everything that's come before it, but this is a movie that you can watch on its own. And from that end, I really liked pretty much everything that they do as far as introducing new characters, things they built on with other characters, and just the story that they give us. And then when you come to the filmmaking and the action, Chris McQuarrie, this dude just gets it, man. Like, he knows how to deliver cinema, and the combo and the partnership of him and Tom Cruise really does deliver movies that up the ante every single movie, and they've both said they won't do more Mission Impossible movies if they can't outdo what they've done in the last one. And Mission Impossible Fallout is my favorite in the franchise and is really the one that just is firing absolutely on all cylinders across the board. And while I don't think this one quite reaches that level for me, Fallout's still my favorite Mission Impossible movie. I think this is, as I've sat with it and thought about it, I think it's number 2, man. And a lot of that is because of what McQuarrie is doing behind the camera. I mean, the stunts and the sequences that they're developing are unbelievably intricate. They're big. They're things you've never seen before. And while I think some of what was in the last movie felt like it was a little bit larger, or some of the scenes specifically because you're in a helicopter maybe had you like on the edge of your seat a little bit more, everything that's going on here is thrilling, and it's nonstop, and it's shot so beautifully. I love where McQuarrie puts the camera. I love how he develops these sequences to show us, but also tell story, right? Like, he really is someone who's about show, not tell. Now, granted, there is tons of exposition in this movie to set up certain pieces because you've got an espionage thriller going on. But the action and how that enhances the exposition that you get leading into it, it's just stellar. And he does things, like I said, that you've never seen before. I mean, that the entire train sequence, which does have visual effect CGI in it, don't get me wrong, but that's entirely shot practical. Like, Esai and Tom are on the top of that train. It's going 60 miles an hour. We just watched a behind-the-scenes video where you see them send the locomotive piece of that train off that cliff. Like, that's the stuff that, it's not just cinema magic when you look at it, but it's like the lengths you go to pull off practical cinema that gives you a different feeling and a different vibe, and it definitely adds an intensity level to it. And then, even to the small things, there's a sequence that takes place in an alley. The way McQuarrie shot that stuff was just unbelievable. And then when you flip it over to this cast, I mean, we start obviously with Tom Cruise. He is Ethan Hunt. They are synonymous, you know. It feels like they're one and the same person. And the thing you love about Ethan is that no mission is impossible, especially when it comes to having to save your own people, right? Like, Ethan will go to any length. You know, you give him the Mission Impossibles and he'll do them, man. Every mission is possible for Ethan Hunt. But the thing that becomes harder and more impossible is keeping your people safe. And that drive is something that I've always loved about Ethan. And that's something that this movie explores a little bit. I really kind of dug how they explored that. And then obviously the execution of the action is absolutely insane. I mean, I think he went off that cliff for that motorcycle bit like 9 times. And that's one of the other things too that I love about this movie, and specifically the writing. This is a group that's worked together for a long time. These are people who have chemistry and they have rapport, and their back and forths and banter are great. And the lead up to that sequence involves him and Simon Pegg's Benji on the phone communicating to each other. It's absolutely hysterical. I mean, there's some really funny, natural humor type moments in this movie because of the group. And that's one of the things that I love that McQuarrie has cultivated, is that family around Ethan. And as he's built that and solidified that more, the back and forth and the banter and that stuff just works really well, and all of it comes natural to Cruise. And like I said, there is a heart to this franchise in Ethan Hunt's family, and that's Ving Rhames as Luther, man. He's the one guy that's been in all these movies with Tom Cruise. He's the one guy we always look forward to showing up, right? Like in the older movies, Luther was out, but every time Ethan needed something, Luther was back in. And Rhames is excellent here. He is the heart and soul of this franchise, and I love the fact that McQuarrie always gives him one nice solo conversation with one of the characters, typically the new character that comes into play with the team, because he's just got this soothing nature to him. And Luther is somebody that you love, and also, like Ethan, has that drive to protect his family, because him and Ethan have lost people, and they've lost a lot of people together. And one of the people they haven't lost, and I think we're all very glad they haven't lost, is Simon Pegg's Benji Dunn. I love Benji. He really does round out that trio so nicely, and I love that he's got the third longest tenure on a group, and what he means to it, right? Like, if Luther is the heart, Benji is typically the brains. I mean, he's the guy. I mean, and don't get me wrong, Benji's got a lot of heart to him as well, and Luther's got a lot of brains to him, man. They're the two computer guys. They're the guys that are making sure all this stuff is working. And like I said, his back and forth with Cruise is just classic every time. And his back and forth with Rhames, too, is just so good. And it's one of these things where it's like, these three guys can be in different locations all the time and are just talking to each other through, telecommunications in their ear. And it's just gold every single time. So I love that core. But that core is so much better when Rebecca Ferguson's Ilsa Faust is around. I love Ilsa. I've been in love with Rebecca Ferguson for forever, man. I mean, absolutely stunning woman. And then you watch her do her thing on screen, and she's always captivating, man. She brings so much to her characters. And what I love that we get to see with her in these movies that we don't get in other movies that she's in is the action element. And that's similar to Vanessa Kirby, too, who we'll talk about in a second. But, I love how Faust acts in the field, and how we don't always know if we can trust her. You know what I mean? There's always this rogueness about Ilsa that I just think Ferguson plays so naturally. And where she plays into this one and how she works her way in with the group into this mission is, again, just really good stuff. And her natural chemistry, specifically with Cruise, is something that really solidifies and cements her in this group. Like the way that we've loved Benji and Luther, you feel that way about Ilsa. And it really does put things on the line when you have a group like this that you love that much. And the thing that's always tough is cracking into a group like that. I mentioned how me and my buddies, we've been together since we were 4 years old. It's hard to break into a group that's got that much history, but there are some characters in here that have cracked into this group in really fun ways, and Vanessa Kirby's White Widow is certainly one of them. I love how they play with White Widow in this one. They give Kirby a lot more to do, and they give her the ability to have kind of a different type of range. There's some cool things going on with her character in this one, and same thing, every time she pops up on screen, I'm in love with Vanessa Kirby too, man. That woman is gorgeous and so talented. But when you put her in the action sequence, all of a sudden you're like, yo, Vanessa Kirby's got another level to her, man. She can do all the interesting character work, but then she can get in there and play. And that's, I think, something that this franchise really does exude and bring out in people is you come and you work with people like Tom Cruise, you want to play and you want to do all that stuff. And getting to see Kirby play in that realm now for a few movies is a lot of fun. And again, as someone else that you can't always trust, and that kind of little bit of devilishness in her is a lot of fun. And they find different ways to play with it this time around that I personally loved. Then you've got 3 full-on newbies here. Obviously, we're going to have a villain, and we've got 2 additional characters that come in the female variety that I really enjoyed. And Haley Atwell, I think, is the biggest winner in this movie. She steals every freaking scene she is in. She is absolutely fantastic. And again, as someone who, when she came into the MCU, I was like, who is this Haley Atwell woman? And she is very talented. And as someone who, she's got this flirtatious play to her on screen. And it works so well with Cruise because she's another one. All the women in Ethan Hunt's life, never quite sure if we can completely trust them. And that flirtatious playfulness that she has on screen with Cruise really plays well into that character and just creates banter and back and forth that's so electric on screen. And it's like that with all the characters. The way that she interacts with everybody is just, you never know what's coming out of her mouth that's true or not, and how she's using whatever's around her to benefit what she's doing, which plays supremely well inside the concept of the Mission Impossible team, right? She's able to work herself into that group in a way that's a lot of fun and is different than the other women that are in the group. And that's something that I like too that McQuarrie's done, is he provides a different kind of attitude or approach for each character, and specifically each female character, which I think a lot of times in these big action franchises you don't get for your female characters. And I love that you see that, and it is so apparent and on screen everywhere with Haley Atwell. And then Pom Klementieff. I love her as Mantis. She's so much fun. She's so funny. She's got so much personality. But if you strip all that away and you don't let her talk really at all. I mean, that's one of these things where it's like Mantis is someone who can have verbal diarrhea and can be just so funny and lean into all those James Gunn things. But you take that away and you just make her badass. Oh my good God. I mean, she's involved in that alley sequence that I mentioned before. And it's so fun, and it's so awesome, but her drive, and her tenacity, and her ferociousness, everything about her in this movie is body language, and everything that she gives you from a body language perspective just tells you everything you need to know about this woman. And this is a character that you are just enamored with every time that she is on screen, and I'm so happy that Pom got this, man, because Paris is a really cool character. She's got depth to her, and we don't know anything about her. And that's one of those things that I think is the talent of Klementieff, where, like, she adds a lot of layers to a character that we don't get a lot of exposition or detail about. And the mystery of Paris and just how she handles herself in the action sequences, she's a threat. She's scary, man, but, like, you love every second of her on screen. And then you've got Esai Morales, and he's actually not going to be the last person we talk about. I got a couple other folks to mention, because one of the things I love about McQuarrie is everybody that he asks to come play, they've got roles and they've got things that are important to the story, and everybody this time around really did add in the performance realm. But Esai Morales was a great villain here. You know, one of the things that I was excited about with this movie is that it was going to be playing into Ethan Hunt's past, and we've got lots of things in Ethan Hunt's past to play with. And considering that McQuarrie has carried things over to movie in his run, I was interested to see if we would see anything with that. And this is a piece of the past for Hunt that does not exist in the cinema, but is one that really does connect to him as a character and lets us understand a lot. Like, it informs us a lot about Ethan Hunt, and the relationship that he has with Gabriel makes a lot of things about that character make sense, and immediately makes Gabriel somebody that you're like, ooh, like, I hate you and you also scare me, and you could be trouble for Ethan, and that's what you want in your villain. And I thought Morales really captured that just with how he carries himself in the movie. And then you throw in the intellect, you throw in the fact that he can handle himself in the field and in combat, like hand-to-hand stuff. He's a scary villain. He is somebody that can stand toe-to-toe with Ethan Hunt, and you're like, yeah, this is not going to be mission easy for Ethan this time. And I really enjoyed their back and forths, and I love the fact that Morales was willing to commit. You know, we've said it before with other people like Haley Atwell and Pom Klementieff and Rebecca Ferguson and Vanessa Kirby, and like the fact that you're willing to dive into the action and get in on it. Like, Morales is standing on the top of that train going 60 miles an hour, coming up with choreography and figuring out how the stunt's going to work and how it's going to be executed with Cruise. Like, I love that you go and you get somebody that's willing to dive in and play in all those realms. And I thought he hit really well, and I can't wait to see where we go in part 2 for Gabriel, because, like I said, I think he's somebody that can get under Ethan's skin, and the way Morales delivers it is just a lot of fun. And then you've got Shea Whigham and Greg Tarzan Davis, who are chasing down Ethan and his team. And I love that we have a perspective where we can see things that are going on from a place that is not coming from our antagonist or our protagonist. And Whigham and Davis just provides some nice comic beats as two people who are trying to chase Ethan, who we know is a good guy, but they think he might be doing bad guy things based on some of the stuff that has happened to this point in time. And the fact that we have a MacGuffin that everybody wants for specific reasons. And while Whigham is going to give you all the Whigham things that you love about Shea Whigham, I really thought Greg Tarzan Davis popped in a way that made him stand out. And I was like, hey, I like this kid. Like, you know, a fresh face brought a little fresh energy, and it's something that is utilized and something that, you know, helps lift the rest of the movie. And that is something that I love about McQuarrie and his cast in general, is that he can bring people in like Frederick Schmidt, who plays Zola, you know, the White Widow's right hand, and find small beats, whether it be, you know, just one of them natural kind of humorous comedic beats, or, you know, just a line or a presence. Like, every character on screen has something to do and a purpose to play, and I think that adds so much to a movie like this. And everybody that came to play this time was really, really good. Specifically, outside of your core four, I thought Haley Atwell and Pom Klementieff really, really popped. So let's get the Sea Maniacs up, man. While this is not Fallout for me, this is, I think, the second best movie that McQuarrie has entered into the franchise, and for me, I think it's probably the second best entry into the franchise. I think it's got a really cool script concept, and while it's a little convoluted early and you got to kind of figure it out, and what's nice is like you got all this action to kind of take in, and speaking of action, I didn't talk about the car chase sequences, which, like, another great car sequence in this one. It doesn't quite hit, like I said, the Fallout levels and like that motorcycle scene, but playing with cobblestones adds different elements of unpredictability. That's a lot of fun to play in a sequence like that, and it is one of these where I just think when you're looking at the action that McQuarrie and Cruise can give you, Dead Reckoning ups the ante, and these two guys will not do another Mission Impossible unless they can come up with stuff that outdoes the movie before it. And while I think Fallout works in general a little bit better for me, I think once you get into this movie and you let the action kind of wash over you, it gives time for what's going on in the script to kind of click in and be like, oh man, you know, you're playing with some interesting and some cool concepts, and the script does lend itself to these really wonderful action sequences. And every single one of them hit for me. I mean, that train scene is like nothing you've ever seen before. And it's one of these where the train sequence is a staple in the cinema world. And it's something like we just saw in Indiana Jones. And you see it in a movie like this and you go, damn, that is a different level. And that's what I love about, you know, McQuarrie and Cruise as a team. They push these movies to places where you have an interesting script and an idea that works in this spy espionage world. You come up with a MacGuffin that makes sense to be chasing, and how it's moving around in this is a lot of fun, and there are a lot of little clever movements to what's happening there. And then the action is just everything that you want, and I love that McQuarrie can capture big-time action cinema that just astounds, but can bring that same quality to a small little alley sequence where you got three people, almost no room to move, almost no room for a camera, and yet it's one of the most engaging scenes in the whole film. And then you got a cast that just litters this thing with people who are willing to step in and play, to come on, have fun, get into the action, do the stuff themselves, and that's what these movies have become. That's what this franchise is built, and I love that about all the characters that come in here, and I can't wait to see part 2. I really, really enjoyed this one. I'm going 4.5 out of 5 C-Maniacs. It's not quite perfect. Like I said, I think the script took a little bit to click in when I first came out. It felt more like an experience, and I felt like I was so sucked into the movie that didn't quite click as a movie until I let it sink in a little bit. So not an absolute, like, you know, grand slam walk-off home run 5 out of 5er, but this is a damn good Mission Impossible movie, and I think it's probably, for me, the second best in the franchise. 4.5 out of 5 C-Maniacs, almost as good as you can get in that realm. And that's all I got to say. I'm turning it over to you guys, man. Are you going to see Mission Impossible? Maybe you've already seen it. If you have seen it, keep it spoiler free, but what'd you think? What things popped? What action sequences were your favorite? What characters were your favorite? Who were the favorite new additions? Did this movie just not work for you? If you're not going to see it, why? I mean, you're just not a Mission Impossible person. Is it something that just doesn't speak to you? And what made you engage with this video? And if you haven't seen it, are you going to see it in the theaters? If you're going to see it in the theaters, you're going to try to get in there before Barbenheimer hits so you can get some premium screens. You're going to hold out, maybe hoping that it'll have premium screens on the backside of that. You're going to wait for streaming. Anything you guys got, really, man, good, bad, indifferent, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, put it down below in the comment section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with C-Man anytime we're talking movies, TV, trailer, reactions, I got all sorts of stuff to catch up on. I've had a weird week. But you dig the vibe, you want to see what we're going to be talking about this week, you want to show a little love and support, hey, come join C-Maniac Nation. Super easy. All you got to do, jump over there, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell if you want those alerts, and until next time for the C-Man's Cinema, sit down. I've been the C-Man. I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, you guys are still here. You snuck up on me. You must be looking for more of this guy. Well, I got 2 video options for you, man. Right up here and right over here. And if you want all those C-Man goodies, well, hey, come join the squad right on over there, and I'll catch you on the next one.